Welcome everyone to the Heartbreak Heel Turn. This is your courteous, generous, very knowledgeable, very good-looking host, Heartbreak himself. And today we're going to do a review on NXT Takeover The End pay-per-view that is only on the WWE Network, which you can get for $9.99. There's my little plug-in. But anyways, we have NXT was a very interesting pay-per-view. I'd like to say, it wasn't the best, but it also wasn't. But it was very entertaining. They did change the name from NXT Takeover Revenge to The End, which had a lot of people thinking about, is this going to be the last NXT pay-per-view show, since they are doing the brand split in July. It does make a lot of sense, but in honestly, they still have to do the Brooklyn show. There's no doubt about that. The Brooklyn show still has to happen. They've been planning that show since the Brooklyn show last year ended, and it was so amazing last year that they just had to do another one. So that show will still happen in August, so you don't have to worry about that. As far as this pay-per-view, it was very good. So we can get right into these matches. The match between Ty Dillinger and Aldrade Cien Almas. Now, this is more of a match. Cien actually means 100 in Spanish. So this is a match where it was almost the perfect 10 versus 100. If you've watched the show before, I'm a huge fan of Ty Dillinger. I honestly think ever since, Sami Zayn left NXT, I thought that Ty Dillinger was the best, is the best worker in NXT. He's by far, to me, he's the most popular. He gets the biggest crowd reactions of anybody on that show, and I mark out every now and then when I see him come out. And to me, it's pretty amazing how he hasn't really gotten much of a push. I understand that there are other people in NXT that they're currently working on. They still have the Finn Balor Samoa Joe feud. They have Shinsuke Nakamura now that they have to worry about. Austin Aries, who's coming in hot from TNA. So I understand they have a lot of other priorities, but when it comes to your homegrown superstars, you have to take into account that those guys you made. So you should try to benefit off the name that you created. So to me, Ty Dillinger should be someone that should be a lot more highly sought out than not sought out. So it makes sense to me. The match that he had with Cien, honestly, it was a great match. It was the Andrade's first NXT match, and it was a good showing. It was a great showing for someone who's brand new, and finally got the opportunity to show his talents. To me, he's a great Mexican wrestler. He does seem like he has a lot of things that he can bring to the table. And he had a lot of great spots in the match. But what I want to focus on is focusing on the psychology of what he's doing, because there's a lot of people who are excellent in-ring workers and have excellent moves and excellent move sets. But as far as knowing the exact times to do them and knowing the psychology of when is the right time and how to work the crowd, it's pretty tough for a lot of people to gauge that nowadays in NXT or in WWE in general, which is one of the reasons why I think it's very seldom that we have many stars in WWE these days. Ty Dillinger, I feel like his in-ring work and his psychology is second to none, or second to maybe only Shinsuke Nakamura on NXT at this point, and maybe Samoa Joe as well. But I haven't heard many of Ty's promos. I haven't heard him speak much, so maybe that's what's holding him back. But if he's a very good speaker, then I can't see why he's not on the main roster, or being on higher in the card on NXT. He usually just comes in for these takeover shows and loses to the guy who was making his debut. That's kind of his thing. But he almost overtakes some of these new wrestlers with his popularity, and it's unbelievable. when he wrestled Austin Aries in Austin Aries' first match in Takeover Dallas, it was no, sorry, it wasn't Takeover Dallas. He fought Baron Corbin in that match, but when he did face Austin Aries in his debut match, Ty Dillinger was overly way more popular in the match, and he had so much more of a big star as far as in that match. So I felt like he did have that in this match as well. But Andrade with the spots that he could pull off, he kind of took over the fan base throughout the course of the match. So that's a good thing to see. Hopefully he has the psychology right. Hopefully, he doesn't just keep doing the same moves over and over again and get boring, because after a while, once you do that, then you're kind of stuck. And especially being a Mexican wrestler, I don't know how well he speaks English. So it's going to be tough for him to connect with the crowd if he doesn't have the proper psychology in the ring and the proper promo style. So we'll see what he goes from here, but this was a very good showing in his first match. So I'll give him that. If I wanted to grade this match, on a 5-star scale, because that's what wrestling observers do, I'd probably give it somewhere around like a 3.25, 3.5, something like that, because it was a great match. The fans were in it, and hopefully, there's more to see out of Ty Dillinger as well. So hopefully we'll see that. It probably could have been a longer match as well. And it would have been a lot better of a rating if it was a longer match, but what can you do? It was the first match in the card, so you can't expect it to be that long. Next match was the American Alpha against the dastardly duo of the Revival, Dash and Dawson. American Alpha, oh man, this match was unbelievable. They if we want to go spot by spot, going from the beginning where, Chad Gable is just an amazing chain wrestler. And you know what? You have to give the Revival credit. At the end of this match, a lot of things happened, and the Revival ended up going over, which is kind of crazy. They ended up winning, and they won pretty cleanly. They did have their dastardly tactics here and there, but as far as the finish goes, they won pretty cleanly. So you can't really say that they won with shenanigans, because that's not really the case. What's amazing to me is, Jason Jordan, being the unbelievable athlete that he is, his drop kicks like reached the forehead of Dash and Dawson. Now, they're not the tallest guys in the world, but for your drop kick to get that high, for you to get that high up in the air, it's still pretty impressive. The spots in this match were way better than the spots that they had in Takeover Dallas. And Takeover Dallas was an amazing match. Don't get me wrong. That was an amazing match by them too, but this was definitely the better of the two, which is rare because you don't really usually see the rematch being a better match than the original, because they usually copy spots and they can't come up with more original things. But it's amazing to me how just a little bit more work that they put into this match to show that the sequel can sometimes be better than the original, which is what the case was here. The double ankle lock spot, that was amazing. I flipped out for that because they went from a double German suplex to a double belly to belly to a double reversal into a double ankle lock, which is that just saying all that is a mouthful. You can imagine what it looked like when you were watching it. Dash and Dawson, they had their little heel tactics. They did their little things here and there, and it was pretty unbelievable to see how far they've come as wrestlers as well. And when they won the belts, and they go and they say, they're the first 2-time NXT Tag Team Champions. They when they don't talk about how being the best NXT Tag Team of all time, there's a very good case that they can make for that, because maybe you want to bring up Enzo and Cass, but they never won the tag titles, let alone twice. And American Alpha is probably the next team that you see doing that they say is as good of a tag team as Dash and Dawson, but American Alpha, they just lost to them. So, and Dash and Dawson are very legitimate. Their finisher is legitimate. Their in-ring work is legitimate. Everything they do is legitimate. It's tough for two people who won NCAA championships in wrestling, in amateur wrestling, and for Chad Gable, who is an Olympic wrestler, For it to be legitimately accepted that they lost to these two wrestlers is is pretty amazing, to show the in-ring work of Dash and Dawson, to show that, okay, these guys are legitimate enough to take down an NCAA wrestler and an Olympic wrestler. So, kudos to them. They definitely deserved the victory that they got. It's going to be interesting to see going forward what they do with Dash and Dawson. American Alpha, it looks like they just have a call up waiting to happen. They're going to be on the main roster soon, whether it's after the draft or after SmackDown goes live, or maybe on that live show. I think that'd be the best way to bring them out. I don't know how they would do it, because they don't really have any feuds with anybody from the main roster. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with them going forward, but I don't really see them in NXT very much longer. Dash and Dawson, they seem like they're going to be the NXT guys for a while. And you really do need good heel champions every now and then, because they kind of set the standard, and they bring the opportunity. They bring the opportunity to show a great babyface champion that overcomes their heel tactics. So hopefully there's another tag team in the works. Who knows who it's going to be? American Alpha might get their rematch at Brooklyn, and maybe they'll get their win back. That's another possibility as well. But I really do see American Alpha going to the main roster very soon. Hopefully, that's what a lot of WWE fans are hoping for, because they could definitely bring some. I mean, you could even bring them up. You could even bring them up with after if the New Day loses the belts to Anderson and Dark Gallows to the club. If they lose their belts to them, then the main roster will have a heel champion, and they'll need another baby face tag team to come and take it. And who else besides American Alpha has more of an opportunity to do that? Who, the Golden Truth? I mean, there are some wily veterans who have taken something, and to use the words of Cody Rhodes, taking chicken shit and turning it into chicken salad. That's what the Golden Truth have done. But at the end of the day, they're not going to be the triumphant babyface champions that get the belts off of the club if they do beat the New Day. So that's what I see. I see American Alpha. I see big things going for them in the future. Hopefully that's the case. Shinsuke Nakamura versus Austin Aries. This is the first time they battled each other on this pay-per-view. They didn't really have much of a feud. It was more of a just trying to see who was the better man. That's what this bout was going into this fight. That's really the storyline behind this. They had a tag team. They tagged together for one match, and Austin Aries felt like Shinsuke outshined him. So he wanted to prove that he was the better man. He doesn't want to be the B+ player. He wants to be the man. And seeing him go against Shinsuke, I definitely can see cases for that being. I can see that being the case, because honestly, I was disappointed with Austin Aries after NXT Takeover Brooklyn. I mean, after NXT Takeover Dallas, the match the day before WrestleMania, his match with Baron Corbin was very underwhelming to me, and it didn't seem legitimate that he beat Baron Corbin, because it just felt like he wasn't. It just didn't feel like he should have won that match. He didn't do anything out of super spectacular. But in this match, he was unbelievable. He lost the match, but he definitely left the match better than he came in. With the spots, with the Death Valley driver on the ring apron, a lot of the things that he was doing, I don't really understand why he had his ribs taped up. Didn't make much sense to me. But they didn't really go into that much during the show, during the bout, and there wasn't really a sign of an injury before that. I guess he might have legitimately hurt himself and used the tape to help his ribs out so he wouldn't get further damage to them. But either way, potato, this match was great. Shinsuke Nakamura was as good as he always is. And he can always bring out the best in the opponents that he fights. Every match that he's been in so far, and NXT, I give him credit. They've done a really good job of keeping him, keeping the mystique of Shinsuke Nakamura up and keeping him on the top part of the card, which is where he belongs. because he was a very established wrestler before he even came to NXT. I watched Shinsuke Nakamura matches before he was even showed to be signed with the company. And I don't watch much Japanese wrestling, so it just goes to show that he was a crossover star before WWE even signed him. So, you know, the the way I see it going with him, he's not slated to be on NXT much longer. If he is, then he's definitely going to be NXT champion soon. If that's the case, if anything, as soon as in Brooklyn in August. They don't have much else to do with him. Every match he does is surefire, and I'm sure Vince would like to see that on the main roster instead of seeing it on the developmental show. Even though technically Triple H did come out not too long ago and say that this isn't a developmental show anymore. This is more of another brand itself in NXT. And hopefully him saying that doesn't mean that they change up the way it is because, trying to make it into like ECW type thing, because they will definitely ruin it if that's what they do. So hopefully they just continue to keep it the way it is because people like it the way it is now. And I like it the way it is now. And you should always listen to Heartbreak. So it'll lead you into a positive direction. Anyway, the match was awesome. If I had to rate it, I would rate it probably four stars, four stars and a quarter. So, which is very good for Austin Aries. For me, I didn't expect that out of him in this match. I didn't expect him to come out and show out like the way he did. And even though he lost, like I said, he still definitely left the match in a better standing than he did coming into the match. Coming into the match, I did not say that he was even a top guy on the card in NXT. In NXT, let alone on the main roster, but now he definitely changed my mind with this one match because he showed out and he did his thing. So that's a good thing to see. Next up was the NXT Women's Championship match between Asuka and Nia Jax. The Asuka ends up winning the match in the end against Nia Jax with a flurry of kicks, which the finish was weird, to say the least. I did like that Nia Jax let out a primal scream before she got knocked out, but it just wasn't believable that she got knocked out because those kicks were just very average kicks. They weren't like, we know Asuka's kicks are deadly, but the roundhouse kick that she uses to knock out people, she didn't even hit Nia Jax all the way. She kind of just grazed her a little bit. So if she had gotten more of that kick, maybe it would have been believable that the next two finished her off. But it just, it didn't look very legitimate to me. At the end, I thought that, Nia Jax had a very good showing. Being the very powerful women heel woman that was trying to take the belt from Asuka. It makes a lot of sense that Asuka does come out with the victory because going forward, I know that they still have to have the rematch with Bayley, and that would be perfect for Brooklyn, especially if Brooklyn's going to be their last pay-per-view. It makes sense. It wouldn't really make sense for Nia Jax to go against Bayley because they've already fought twice, and it's not like those matches were unbelievable. They were good matches. They just, it's not like they were. Another Asuka Bayley match would be something that people would love to see in Brooklyn, and Brooklyn's already, already looking to be a great show. It looks like, I'm not going to talk about the main event, but it looks like Shinsuke Nakamura will probably be the number one contender against the NXT champion, which is already, I would pay just to watch that match alone, let alone everything else. Then to see Asuka and Bayley, the rematch at Brooklyn, that's going to be amazing as well. Seeing where they go with Andrade Cien Almas. Hopefully Ty Dillinger's on the show as well. Seeing where they go with Austin Aries too, because he definitely deserved a spot on NXT Brooklyn now after this performance he put on with Shinsuke Nakamura. But going more into the women's championship match, Asuka showed that she's not, even though Nia Jax is a monster, is a beast, so much bigger than the rest of the women. Asuka still showed that she can take on all comers and showed that it still looks legitimate when a Japanese wrestler can take on such a monster in Nia Jax. So, kudos to Asuka. She did what she had to do. Left with the belt, and hopefully this isn't the end for Nia Jax. I don't really want to see her much on NXT anymore. I think a main roster call up would be a good thing. Um, it would have been better to me. I understand that they wanted probably another good-looking woman next to Charlotte, so that's why they put Dana Brooke with Charlotte on the main roster just a couple weeks ago. But it would have been cool for me to see Nia Jax because usually the very very squeamish heel champion like Charlotte is becoming usually has a bodyguard that's like huge. Look at Shawn Michaels when he was Intercontinental Champion. He had Diesel, then he had Sid, then he had um, Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and Rick Rude, and all of them. So very very heelish, punk tactic champions usually deserve a big bodyguard, and I thought Nia Jax would have been perfect for Charlotte. Maybe they're saving Nia Jax for another heel champion. Not to spoil it, but maybe they're saving it for Sasha. Because in my opinion, this is where they're going to go with this on the main roster. Sasha is going to show up eventually on Raw or SmackDown. She's been missing for the last couple weeks, and it makes sense. They're keeping her off of TV so that when she does show up, it's still special. So I'm not mad that she's not on TV. I understand. I get it. It makes a lot of sense, and I actually like the idea. So when she finally does come and gets her rematch against Charlotte, but this time a one-on-one, this is probably what's going to happen at SummerSlam in August. Charlotte will lose the belt to Sasha Banks. From there, Sasha is definitely going to probably have a program with Bayley. Not who knows if they're going to do it. Wait till WrestleMania next year to do that, but it's going to happen. Especially if Sasha's the champion, Bayley's going to be the one to take that belt from Sasha. It makes sense. And that in that match, Bayley's not going to be the heel. Bayley's not going to be the bad guy. Bayley will probably be the John Cena of the women's division. She will probably be the good guy for a very, very, very long part of her career because that's her personality. That's her whole gimmick is being the person who overcomes all obstacles to be great. That's Bayley's thing. Sasha is great as a face, as a heel. She's great as a good guy, as a bad guy. It doesn't matter. Sasha is so versatile. So I can see Sasha Banks being the heel in that match. And for Sasha, who is a heel, who is even smaller than Charlotte, for Charlotte to need a bodyguard, and Sasha's even smaller than her, I can see Sasha having a big bodyguard to back her up, during her matches when she becomes that punky heel champion. And Nia Jax will be perfect for that. So hopefully that's what they do with her. Other than that, I don't really see much for Nia Jax. She doesn't really have very good promos when she talks. It's kind of almost seems like it's rehearsed. And no knock to her. She's not the only one on the roster like that. Not even guy or girl. There's probably I can probably count on my two hands the amount of people that have promos that don't sound scripted. And that's a shame because it takes the legitimacy out of these promos that we watch between these wrestlers, and it makes the storyline so much feel like it's watered down, and that's unfortunate. The company's not going to go anywhere. Where I was watching a show the other day with a cousin of mine who's like 12 or 13 years old. He's a pretty young kid. I think he's like 10 actually, and him watching like 10 seconds of a wrestling match or a wrestling promo without even knowing, who these people are, what they're even talking about. He can just look at them and say and listen to them for a couple seconds and go, "Oh, it sounds like he's reading off of a script." And that's true. That's a true story. That happened to me very recently. And for a little kid if a little kid, this is supposed to be the PG era, and they have the PG era where oh yeah, we're our demographic is going towards kids now, and that's fine. But if even a kid can listen to a promo and go, oh, that's scripted, sheesh, you're definitely doing something wrong. And if the kids can see it, what do you think the adult fans think when they watch these things? So, Nia Jax, as far as your in-ring work, you're fine. You're a monster. That's what you're supposed to be. That's all dandy. But you know, for me, for you to ever be a champion, whether it's in NXT or even on the main roster, your promo skills do have to go up a little bit. And I would love to see that, because I would love to see a woman like you, who is a bigger size, win this women's title on the main roster, whether it's on NXT or the main roster, you know, just to show that you've overcome so much. So I'd love to see that. So, you know, the women's match was all right. If I had to rate it, I'd probably give it something less than a 4, probably like a 3.5, because of Asuka's brilliance and Nia Jax, you know, her beastly, you know, just her psychology is very good. So I'll give her that. She's very good with her psychology in the ring. Um, you know, which is awesome. She's very close to being a champion. You know, she's very close. You know, she still has a little bit to work on, like I said, with her promos, but she's not. She's improved much since we first seen her, since she started teaming up with Eva Marie. Speaking of Eva Marie, where has she gone? You know, she had Nia Jax as her bodyguard, and that made a lot of sense. And then she just gets a couple title shots and then just falls off the face of the earth. Now, Eva Marie's the most beautiful woman on the roster. She's the most beautiful woman probably on planet Earth. And, you know, she's not, and she still hasn't gotten her push. And that just goes to show her in-ring work probably isn't as good as it should be. And you know what? It's crazy because, you know, if people understood psychology of wrestling so much more than they did, Eva Marie could take the fact that she is not that good of a wrestler and that she's just a beautiful face and piss everybody off with that, and go into the ring and say, yeah, I'm not a good wrestler, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to be champion because I'm more beautiful than everybody else. And while she's wrestling, have these, you know, do little things here and there that portray that personality. You know, when someone tells you that you need to come out and say this and do that to show that you don't care what the fans think, that's fine, you know, but you need to have it in yourself as well to understand the psychology. People can't tell you everything you need to do step by step, and you can go out there and portray it like an actor, because you're a wrestler. You're not an actor, so you don't act very well. You know, there are very few wrestlers that are good at acting. You know, very few wrestlers have made that crossover into movies. The Rock is one of them. John Cena is starting to do that now. You know, and those guys are once in a lifetime guys. The Rock is not a guy that comes around he comes around maybe every generation, every 25 years. A guy like The Rock comes into wrestling. You know, even Hulk Hogan, who was a big star in the 80s, he wasn't a very good guy when it came to the movies. He didn't have a very successful run with those things. So, not to say that every wrestler has to be an actor, no, but that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make them all actors, and they're not all actors. They can't be. They're wrestlers. They need to understand the psychology of wrestling. So, hopefully, you know, that gets into somebody's ear. But that was the Women's Championship match was the second to last match on the pay-per-view. And the final match was the NXT Championship match between Finn Balor and Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe being the champion, winning at a house show, which is very rare. Winning at a house show in Massachusetts, may I add, which is where I'm from. And to me, Samoa Joe has been a great heel champion so far. It made a lot of sense to me that he won in Lowell, Massachusetts on a house show. On a non-televised show, he won the championship because, you know, he was doing so well, and they probably have a lot of things they want to do with Finn Balor that have nothing to do with NXT. He's probably going to go up to the main roster soon. So why would you have this guy who's going to make a big splash on the main roster lose cleanly to a heel, to a bad guy? Doesn't make much sense. So doing it at a house show kind of gives it the excuse that, hey, you know, not many people saw it. You know, so it's not a big deal that Samoa Joe won the championship. And Samoa Joe definitely deserves to be champion. I don't think anybody refutes that at all. Samoa Joe has ever since the Dusty Tag Team Classic in his first match with Finn Balor, he's definitely shown that he can carry the load of being a champion on a WWE brand. You know, he's definitely shown it on other brands, you know, in Ring of Honor and TNA. He has been a great champion. And he just had to prove himself in WWE, and he's done that. And it's great to see him be champion. And now I want to see him with the belt for quite a while, before he loses it to whoever he loses it to, and I foresee him losing it to Shinsuke Nakamura eventually. But to get back to this match, this was the first steel cage match in NXT history. So it makes a lot of sense to see that these two would be battling it out in a steel cage match. And the way that even, to me, I wish that they finished the match, someone going over the steel cage like in the old days, someone going over the steel cage and coming out on the other side and becoming champion instead of having a pin or having someone leave through the door. I think those are so stupid to have. Well, what's the point of having the cage if you can just get out from the door and win leaving from the front door? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't really feel like you're locked in the cage. It kind of takes the mystique out of being in a steel cage. And I thought that NXT, since it's their first steel cage match, I thought that's what they would do. I thought they would make it so that you would either have to win with the pin or win by climbing the cage and getting out. No one climbs the cage and leaves the cage anymore to win. And that's a shame. That's the whole point of the cage. You need to escape the cage. It's a cage. You need to escape it. There's no point. You might as well make it a Hell in the Cell match if you can't leave. You might as well put a roof on top of the cage if no one leaves the cage anymore, So to me, the door opening, that was always stupid. I think they should completely take it out all the way. The pinning, you can't always take that out because then, it kind of, there's going to be, in the near future, hopefully, there's going to be a match that can explain what I'm talking about. And the steel cage match between Brett and Owen back in 1994, one of the only 5-star matches in WWE history, by the way, one of only 4, and it was the first steel cage match ever. Just goes to show that, they know how to make a great steel cage match. The very first one was a great match. They just need to, to be consistent with it. And but this match, nonetheless, this was a great match. Samoa Joe and Finn Balor for the 4th time that they fought each other. If you count the 2 pay-per-views and then you count the match in Lowell, even though they've had other house shows where they've gone against each other, the 4th match televised really, it wasn't bad. For a match that's been the 4th match, you feel like it's going to be deja vu. You're going to see the same things over and over again. But that wasn't really the case with this one. This match, had a lot of, especially with the steel cage being around it, it was very unique compared to the other 3 that they fought. And it's great to see Samoa Joe come out as champion. Finn Balor, I think he was a great champion when he had the belt, and he was the longest reigning NXT champion of all time. So I think that his run as the top guy in NXT is done because he has bigger and better fish to fry as far as on the main roster. And I foresee him, on the main roster, guys like him, guys like Baron Corbin, guys like hopefully Tyler Breeze, Ty Dillinger, Bailey, they all will benefit. Sasha Banks, they'll all benefit from this brand split that they're going to have in July. And the brand split is something that I was against at first because I didn't want to see 2 world champions again. I didn't really like that. I thought that the roster, the reason why they brought the 2 main titles together and unified them was because there wasn't enough talent on the roster to have 2 major champions. And the roster has only gotten thinner since the days that they brought the titles together. So since 2013, I think they did it. So, to me, at the end of the day, they're gonna hopefully they just keep 1 world champion. It's gonna be tough with 2 separate rosters and 2 separate live shows now that SmackDown is going live on July 17th. But, Roman Reigns, as far as like big name guys on the roster, Roman Reigns, who they've pushed up there, but let alone whether you want him up there or not, he's up there because he's the world champion. John Cena, I'm at a loss. I can't think of anyone else. It's just them 2. Roman Reigns and Cena, and maybe Brock Lesnar definitely, but he's very part-time, and he's going to UFC now, so we don't know when he's going to be back to WWE, if ever. Say he does well in this match he has in UFC, at UFC 200. Does he go back to WWE for SummerSlam? They said that he's still promoted for SummerSlam. He's still promoted to be on the show. So the way it's looking, it looks like he's going to be on the UFC 200 pay-per-view and then be on SummerSlam in August. But after SummerSlam, it's going to be a very short-lived feud unless it's going to be against a match against a big-name guy. Nobody's going to really care, other than him fighting one of the main guys, whether it's on NXT, whether it's on the main roster. Other than that, Brock Lesnar, it's the match that he's going to have at SummerSlam is going to be very nonchalant. It's going to be no one's going to really care about it. So, besides those three guys, Brock, Cena, Roman, maybe Seth, maybe, even though he just got back, there aren't really main event headliner guys that can sell tickets on that roster. So I don't see, unless you make Roman one champion and John Cena the other champion on the two separate shows, I don't really see why they would have two separate main title championships now. So I don't mind the brand split. It's going to be a good idea because they have a lot of talent in NXT to bring up that they can put on SmackDown, and having the two separate rosters will make each show unique in its own way, like it was when it first started. But back then, when it first started, they had unbelievable wrestlers, and they had so much talent because they had just bought out WCW in 2001. So when they split up the brands, they had a plethora of people to put on each roster, and it didn't seem like one roster was watered down compared to the other. So I don't really see that now. But if that's what they think, they can do, then maybe it'll create an opportunity to make stars. And that's what I think that they're banking on with this brand split, that they are gonna create an opportunity for up and coming guys to be main eventers and for them to have their names up there with the John Cenas and the Roman Reigns and the Brock Lesnars. A guy like Finn Balor could definitely be up there. A guy like Samoa Joe could definitely be on there as well. So especially after the match that they had at Takeover, I can definitely see that being a possibility. So all in all, NXT Takeover, the end, was a very decent show. It had great matches. I think that it was the prelude for their Takeover show in Brooklyn. And we'll just see what happens from there. But NXT is still on the rise, in my opinion. The show didn't do anything to bring it down. And they have a long way to go with the things that they're gonna try to do, being a third brand now. As far as what Triple H said, it'd be awesome to see Triple H. He hasn't been on TV since he lost to Roman at WrestleMania. It'd be great to see him come in and kind of have another Nexus angle where NXT tries to take over one of these brands, take over Raw, or take over SmackDown. That'd be awesome. And Triple H being the head of that I mean, that's must-see TV for any WWE fan. So hopefully they have some good ideas going on and they don't really waste the talent that they have, because there's a very fine window with some of these people that they have that you don't want to really spoil their moment. And hopefully they get it together and they can get through that whole thing. So it's good to see that. We can at the end of the show, I usually have like a whole thing that I do, but I just want you guys to know I appreciate you listening. As always, if you would like to send me questions or send me questions or opinions on anything that you would like to know, go send them to heartbreak@post.com. So that's heartbreak@post.com, and I'll answer your questions. I read all of the emails. I don't necessarily answer all of them, but I read all of them. Go follow me on Twitter at GT Christopher. And there, I'll put up my opinions on some of the pay-per-views, some of the matches. They're very entertaining. So yeah, this was the Heartbreak Heel Turn. Hopefully I'll see you guys soon. This is Heartbreak signing out.